What is going on, my friends? Welcome back to another episode of the Mental Corner podcast, the show where I bring on guests from all different backgrounds to talk all the things mental health. I'm, of course, your host, Harry Potvin, and today I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Kayla Lafi. Kayla is a certified health and life coach who, for the last 2 years, has dove into her purpose, self-improvement, and general well-being after healing from a suicide attempt. Kayla was so much fun to have on, and I really want to thank her again for coming on and having this super important discussion with me. And I do want to put a trigger warning on this episode again because we do really dive into the topics of suicidal ideation, suicide attempts, so if these are triggers for you, please just exit the episode now. Now, before we get into the episode today, guys, you know the drill. If you're listening, please like, comment, share, subscribe, give 5 stars if you're on that podcast platform, share with someone who might want to hear this episode. It's a really great one, and I can't wait for you to listen. I'll talk to y'all very soon. Have a great rest of your day. Peace. We are good to go. Kayla, what's going on? Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. So my first question for you, I ask all my guests this, and it's a very broad question, but where does your whole journey with mental health advocacy and self-help, where does that all start?
I guess you could say my mental health advocacy started only about 2 years ago after my own lived experience, which we can get into. I don't want to it's hard to ease it in because
Mm-hmm.
it's a tough topic, but I had an attempt and it was kind of like this moment in my life where I felt alone and I didn't know what to do. So when I was in the hospital, because for me, my story was that I was able to get help in some sort, kind of after the fact, but still was able to get help that I ended up in the hospital. And when I was in the hospital, I met with other people who thought and felt like me. And for the first time, I realized that it was important to seek help, ask for help, because seeing other people suffer the same fate that I was suffering I felt bad. And that kind of empathy and compassion led me to wanting to really advocate for suicide prevention and focusing on preventative measures that can happen in your community and based off your peers, and also through resiliency of self resiliency, right? Like building up yourself enough to take charge of your life and to do the things on your terms so that you never have to get to that point. And even if you do get to that point, there's always there's a basket ready to catch you, before you really fall off.
Mm. No, I love that analogy. Where did those
Yeah.
feelings of like loneliness and wanting to end it, where did those come from?
So I actually always felt that way for a very long time. Um, I'm I'm 27 years old right now, but it's hard for me to even still talk about it. I was severely bullied, like cyberbullied and bullied in person in school from ages 10 to I think 16, 17 almost.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt as if every time I asked for help and every time I tried to end it, it only got worse for me, especially in school. And I think that's where it really started, where I felt like I was on my own. And even though I had my family, it it's hard to go to your family and tell them what's going on, I think.
Yeah.
Even though they say to do that, it is difficult to admit to even yourself that this is happening. So I really felt alone for a very majority of my life. And when I was 23, which is 23, 24, something occurred in my life. I don't really know how to explain it. I can only explain it as just my mental health just started plummeting. I don't really know what triggered it,
Mm.
but it just really started hitting a toll on me. And that's when all these feelings and all these things that started way back when I was younger, like all kind of caught up onto me. And I just felt like hopeless, as what I guess most people who have felt suicidal have felt, is just at this point where you don't have anything left to give. You don't know what else to do. And this seems like the only answer, um, even though it's not. But at the time, that's where I felt it. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So when you were getting cyberbullied, because I'm by the time this comes out, I'll be almost 24. So relatively similar in age in the sense where that was around when the internet was kind of new, social media was kind of new, and cyberbullying was not getting regulated at all. So
Right.
that was when it was top notch. You kept hearing about stories like that.
Yeah, that was so it really blew up when I got into high school, I think. Facebook, and there was this I don't know how popular this was, but it was it kept changing. There was this app or this online website called Formspring, and there was another
Okay.
one later that came out called Ask FM, which is it was basically the same concept.
Yeah.
And it was this, you set up a profile and anonymously you can ask questions. Now, I know in high school, originally, I think what was the intention was you can ask your crush, hey, who do you like, in school? Something
Mm-hmm.
so silly, something so innocent, just like a great way to talk to the guy you like or the girl you like, whatever, and kind of just get to know them without having actually to talking to them. But of course, kids, teenagers just took it another way. And while some people got the fun stuff, other people didn't. And I remember I had set mine up as like, of course I'm going to set one up. Like I wasn't, even though I was bullied in middle school, I didn't think to myself, oh, another app. Like I didn't think that. I just wanted to be part of culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I set a forms, which was what I had. It was called Formspring, and I set it up. And originally, I thought only my friends had access to it, and we would ask each other stupid questions. Who do you like? Like, we were just bothering each other, things like that. Um, and I didn't go on it for a couple of months. And I remember I had just like randomly was in my room. Like to this day, this is exactly how I found out that I was being I didn't know I was being cyberbullied until this moment.
Mm-hmm.
I opened up, I was like, oh, I should probably delete this Formspring thing because I don't use it. I went on it for a while, got over it. It was a trend, right? And when I went on it to delete it, still hurts to this day, but I remember just being in my room, sitting there, like my heart sank to my stomach because I had 400 like messages, anonymous messages telling
Wow.
me to like end my life, that I'm that I do thing do I that I do like sexually explicit things with my with my dogs,
Mm.
right? Saying things like I'm going to, when I see you in the hallway at school, I'm going to punch you in the face. I'm going to suck all these things. And meanwhile, for months, I had no clue that this was going on. So I'm going to school, kind of living my life, and to find out that there's like people in my class or one person I have no clue who this person is because it's anonymous, like sending me hate mail, and I couldn't even really digest it all because it felt like so much, like 400 messages of just hate.
Yeah.
It felt like, what did I do to deserve that? And when I took it to, I went to a Catholic school. And when I took it to my sister, which is the vice, like it was like she's like kind of like the vice principal, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
I took it to her and I said, this is what's happening. And then I also found out that there's this girl who is, uh, we didn't have Instagram, we only had Facebook, but I have no clue exactly how to explain it, but she took pictures of me and she made an album on her own Facebook page where it was kind of just like making fun of me in this whole album, and everyone knew about it and everyone knew that it was about me. And I just felt like she doesn't we weren't even friends on Facebook, and I just thought to myself, how does she even know what my pictures look like and what is going on? So I took it to this sister and I said, this is what's happening. I need this to end. And I don't feel safe coming to school anymore. Like that's why I haven't been coming. into class. I don't even feel safe talking anymore. I don't feel safe. And I was told that I needed to forgive, um, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm Christian. I get it.
Right.
Like, I get it. Not the answer I wanted,
No.
right? I wanted it to end and it didn't end there. And then I think at that point, like, it really hit me that I felt that I was just like, you're on your own, and also kids, I think another thing too is like, kids are easily influenced. And I don't think that my friends, the few friends that I had, were going to be people that stood up and be like, you know, tell the bully to stop it. They're just going to kind of not say anything,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't blame them. I think that maybe if I was in their shoes, I would have felt awkward too, of not of saying something, right? Because you never want the bully then to turn on to you and then start bullying you if it's just one person. So while my friends weren't embarrassed to be my friends, which was great, I'm happy that they weren't. I still didn't have really anyone sticking up for me. I didn't have anyone saying, "Hey, stop it. That's not cool." Right? Like, you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't do that. And it turned out to be a really hard time for me growing up. And I think after being told that I needed to forgive, I realized that, like, I just was on my own. And that really stuck with me for a while, because it took me a really hard time. It took me a very long time to open up then to people and to feel safe around people, and even amongst my peers. Like, people my age always felt very intimidating to me because I never knew whether they liked me or not, which affected my mental health, I think, and affected the way that I situated myself in social situations.
Mm-hmm. Were
Yeah.
were the bullies that were bullying you in high school and cyberbullying you, were they the same as the ones you experienced in middle school, or was it a whole different group of people?
They ended up, it's funny. So in middle school it was bad. I think middle school is really bad for multiple reasons, but
Right.
middle school is always so bad. In middle school it was bad, and then I went to school with just one girl. We transitioned together to a Catholic school from our previous middle school Catholic school. We both went, and we were friends at the beginning of the year. And honestly, the story of how this happened, which I think is just so silly, was I think the story went that she felt someone had taken, she thought that I had told people that she had no friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just not someone to say that about anybody. Like, oh, she has no friend. I think people have friends. Unless you're completely alone and you're sitting, like, I don't, who am I to tell you that you don't have, like, I just thought to myself, what? Wait, what? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what? So, and I didn't know that I even had said this, or I didn't even know that this was a rumor that was being spread amongst this kind of group of people that I went to middle school with and amongst her. So she ended up like distancing herself from me. And when I had asked like what was going on, what was wrong, she then kind of like yelled at me and told me that this is what was going on. And I told her, wait, I never said that. I'm so sorry that's what's being said, but I never said that. And I apologize and I tried to make amends, and it just turned completely against me. And the bullies that were actually bullying me were juniors, and I was a freshman, and they were juniors on the track team, which I found out because this girl was on the track team, and she had, I guess, explained to them that I had spread this rumor and that I had done all this, horrible things to make myself look good. When in reality, I have no, I gained nothing from doing that. I don't, I gained nothing from it. So I just thought to myself, and I also didn't even realize that juniors were doing this until I think I found out my sophomore year that it was the cross country team or the track team.
Mm-hmm.
And I was stunned when I found that out. But at the same time, I was still being bullied from my middle school, from other people in my town. I'm like, how do I even have the capacity to bully somebody else when I'm being when I'm
Right.
being attacked every day on the internet. I don't even know how, why would I even waste my time doing that? But it stuck with me for a while, and I got really sick because of all of it. I ended up suffering. It's like a form of PTSD, and it's like they're called I think they're called psychoactive seizures, and they're not epileptic seizures. They are seizures that you get from kind of like trauma, and it's like your body's response to trauma. And it happened to me when I was 17, and my life changed completely. Like that's when my whole health started plummeting because these seizures like wouldn't stop. And like every time I even think about going back to school, it would happen and occur again. And so like my trigger was attending class and being amongst like kids my age. I just never felt safe. I never felt welcomed. I never felt like I was going to receive help when I asked for it, because I didn't in the past. And I was constantly left alone because, it's like this weird, like when you don't show up to school for a while and you're like constantly absent, I think kids start to think that you're weird or something like that. Like I think
Yep.
naturally when you're not around, people just get closer, whatever. And because I wasn't around, I wasn't able to even really show people who I am and like for people to get to know me. And I think that also hindered a lot of like my progress in terms of social support. But yeah,
Sorry, when did you get when did those seizures start kicking in again?
17 years old.
17.
Yeah.
And
And
how
they
did
stopped,
Oh, they
thankfully.
did.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hmm.
thankfully, yeah. How did
Yeah.
you initially, cuz when they first happened, did doctors and you and your family, did you just assume that they were just normal seizures, or did they tell you straight up that they were induced by trauma?
It was later on that it was determined that it was induced by trauma because I ended up getting hospitalized immediately as soon as it happened because I fainted. It's hard to remember because I did black out. I fainted, I blacked out, and then I had this like seizure like episode, and then my mom said that I had very much like my heart stopped, like everything went shut down, and she thought I was like dead. Like she just thought that like I died right there.
Hmm.
Um, then like it was at the mall too. It was like so random, and then I went to the hospital, and they were like, well, now you're fine. Like everything is like starting to like my level started leveling out. And they were like, that's weird. Like what's going on? But then they sent me home, and then it kept happening over and over and over again. And they were like, this is not what a seizure is supposed to be like. So they did a whole like know what it's called. It's like is it called an ECT? It's like they stick these little nodes on your
Hmm.
head and they test to see your brain activity.
Yeah.
And that's usually how they can, I guess, determine what's going on neurologically. And they couldn't find anything because there really wasn't anything neurologically going on. It was all psychologically, but it was affecting me physically. So it was like a mix, right? And finally, the doctors were just like, you're gonna have to go to like therapy. You have like PTSD or depression, anxiety, like just a whole little cocktail of things going on. And that's when I started my mental health treatment. Finally, it was like when I was 18 years old, and by that time I was out of high school, going to college. So I think it was kind of like a good thing that I started it right before transitioning into college, because then I did feel a little bit more stronger, I guess you could say, and like more like a little bit more resilient getting into college, feeling like I can like shed the past and step into who I am. Even though it took some time to get there, it's still, I think college really opened up that pathway for me. And I was still sick and I was still depressed and I still suffered a lot from other things going on. But it was the first time in my life where I wasn't actually being bullied.
Hmm.
And I think for the first time, I felt kind of free without without this like looming feeling that someone can like come out of nowhere and hit me, or come out of nowhere and like I don't know. It feels like going to school in middle school and high school. I just felt like I was always walking on eggshells. Like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I'd always say the wrong things, always, obviously, because no one, And it just felt like the problem was always, they always say like there's this thing like when nobody likes you, the problem has to be you. And it's like
Yeah.
for so long I felt that way. Like the problem is me. Like it has to be. Nobody likes me. No one's getting along with me. But it didn't just start there, like there was a trigger. And then of course I think I definitely became like maybe like meaner or like maybe like more shut down or maybe just like more pushing away from people for sure. I mean, what else are you going to do? You're going to protect yourself in any way. But I don't think the problem necessarily was me. I think the problem was that there was a problem and it was never addressed. And
Right.
then eventually my response is going to be a reaction. I remember actually, this is a funny story, not funny, but like kind of sad. I remember in the same all girls school, um, I thought it was my sophomore year, and I thought we were in this like retreat thing. I don't even know what it was, whatever, in this like retreat. And we were all getting to know each other and our feelings. And another girl had opened up about being bullied. And I felt for her so much. And then she opened up to everybody. And then we were set off into like little small groups to talk. And so in my group, we were all each going around talking about different things. And I felt, I didn't feel comfortable, but I thought, you know what, maybe I could share this, let them know that like I was really bullied my freshman year and it really affected me. And like maybe my classmates will have a change in, maybe they'll like me again. Like, because they did like me before. They don't
Hmm.
like me now because they think I did something that I didn't do, right? Because of this lie or whatever. And so when I opened up and I explained that I had lost all my friends and I had felt alone and I didn't know what to do and I wanted just someone to feel like I wanted to feel safe again. Remember this girl, like one girl was like, I'm so sorry that this happened. Like, I'm here for you. And then this other girl just came up to me and was like, I hope you find friends. And I just was
Damn.
like, that's not That's like not what I needed to hear. Like, not, I
No.
hope you find friends. This is a small class. There's literally like what, 70 of us? You hope I find friends? If like, yeah, me too. I just hope that someone like treats me nice. Yeah, like
Right.
and I just looked at her and I just was like, no, no, like no, don't say it. Like what? And I just felt so I was offended by that because I just thought like here I am opening up, sharing with you that I'm at a loss because like I don't know what else to do. Like I've even said sorry for something that I didn't even do, right? Like I took the blame. I was like, you know what? If I have to take that blame to make someone else feel safe and feel like, you know, that they're not being bullied, then okay, I'll say sorry. And I did. And my apology was just met with bullying. So
Yeah.
I just thought, if you can't forgive me, then why I forgive me? I can't forgive you. So when I explained that and that girl told me that, it stuck with me and I just realized like I wasn't going to find peace, in that school or by anything because no one was going to um be there for me.
Hmm. That's a wild
Yeah.
situation to be in because your back's already against the wall, and no matter what you do, you're gonna lose.
Yeah. That's how I felt for a very long time. And I think it caught up to me when I was 23 and 23, 24, and I just being an adult, graduating college, losing, not really feeling like I don't know, a lot of things caught up to me. Like I just almost felt like I had felt like I've been up against a wall for a long time. Um, and I never felt safe to be myself in a lot of situations. Even though, yes, in college I did at some point, but it was really difficult. It was really, really difficult. And I think the only reason why I was able to kind of push myself to kind of give like this false sense of confidence was like I just really fell into this role where I would wake up every day and say like I have to be like this person because that's what people like. And this person is funny and exciting and full of stories and does wild things. And that's who I became.
Mm.
And for a long time, I just fed into that role. But it's not, I don't think that I'm not just that. I'm multifaceted, just like everyone else. I could be calm, be this, and be whatever. But like I fell into that role because I wanted people to, even though that part of me exists for sure, like I could be wild, I could be fun. I'm not always that,
Hmm.
but because that's the version that people liked, that's the version that I really tried to be. But it was really difficult because it only made my depression worse. It still made me feel alone because not everyone got to know me the way that I really am. And it felt like I just had to keep putting on this version of me that only exists in in certain situations like everyone else. But it felt like I needed to be that because that was the only way that I could survive. And I remember after my attempt, like sitting in the hospital and I looked at like the doctors and everybody and I just said, you know, for like the longest time, I just feel like I'm surviving and I'm like not even living, like I feel dead
Mm.
already inside. I don't feel purpose. I don't feel alive. I feel drained and I feel tired. And I don't necessarily want to thrive. I don't want to I don't need like a whole like what is it, like a 360 switch or a 180, 180 or something like that. But I just didn't want to feel this feeling anymore, feeling like I'm stuck in this. No matter what I've done, I felt like I was stuck in these roles. I was stuck in the bullying role. Now I created this own role myself because I just wanted to be liked, because I wanted to have friends for the first time in my life. And now I feel like I am so alone because there's no one really knows me.
Right.
I don't even know. I didn't even recognize myself anymore. Like, what have I, who am I? What do I want? I don't know. I feel like I'm just living life for everyone else. And yet I have nobody. Yeah.
Man, you just described what it's like to live with suicidal ideation perfectly. The surviving, not living.
Yeah.
Because when people ask like, "What's it like?" I always struggle to find the words for it because if you've never experienced it, you don't really know at the end of the day. And I'll try to paint you a picture, but it's not gonna work. But
Right.
you nailed it. It's you feel like you're in fight or flight mode the whole time because even you're against yourself. So it's like, who can
Yeah.
you turn to?
Yeah. And it, you know what? Even after my attempt, to this day, I still struggle with suicidal ideation. It doesn't go away,
Right.
right? The darkness, the thoughts. And in those days, it's really, really hard. And it's like, while my impulse and my irrationality in terms of problem solving is thankfully gone,
Mm-hmm.
I have my coping mechanisms now. I have my toolkit, my safety plan that I can go to, which I didn't have before. And I'm very grateful for my therapist for the last 2 years that helped me build these skills and build these kind of like this toolbox. And I was grateful for even when I came to him and I said, I remember like a couple months in, maybe like, not a couple months in, maybe like a year in, I came to him and I said, look, I don't know what is going on, but I'm dealing with suicidal thoughts again and I thought they'd go away. Like I thought I was better and now am I not better? Like what's going on? And he explained to me that like, it happens, but like, and it's normal to feel this way. And I think that's like the weirdest way of putting it, that it is not like for us, people who suffer from this,
Right.
it's, it's our normal. It sucks and it's not normal on a like normal scale, right? But for us, it's like this, you have to be okay with it in order to manage it, in order to overcome it, in order to know that it's a wave and it's going to come and then it's going to go and it's going to come and it's going to go. And you've survived this before and you're going to survive it again. because one thing that hit me after I made my attempt a couple months later, I ran into someone. It's so funny. I ran into someone from the hospital that I was with,
Mm.
which is so random. I'm so friendly. I walked up to the person. I was like, "Hi, it's me."
Yeah.
And the person told me that they relapsed with their own issues. And I just sat there and I said, we talked it out. And weirdly enough, someone else overheard who was also at the hospital, the same hospital that we were at.
Damn.
And they were like, "Hey, you were in that hospital too?" And I'm like, "Yep,
Wait,
sure, join
what?
us." So we
Yeah.
were all just sat there discussing our mental health and our issues. And the other person that I wasn't in the hospital with, but had went to the same hospital when she was sick, we were talking about suicidal ideation. And the one thing that stuck with me was that she told me, she goes, "You know what? Sometimes with people, you have to kind of tell yourself, like, this is black or white. There's no, because sometimes it feels like you want to try again, right? Like your thoughts are telling you, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again." And you're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And for me, because my two attempts failed, I failed, didn't work. I don't know how else to put it. It
Right.
didn't go through, right? Um, it was like you think you're playing Russian roulette with your life, you know?
Right.
And she told me, she looked at me right in the eye, and she just said, "Sometimes you just got to look at yourself in the mirror and just be like, no, you can't do this. You can think this, but you can't do anything about it because this is black and white. You're not going to get another chance.
Hmm.
That's it. It's done. No, no, not like that's it. You're done." I just was like, yeah, yeah, like, yeah, like I have to almost confront it and be like, even though it's really dark, it's like I take that version of me and I put it in front of me and I go, no, eat like, or I just like stay there, just stay. I hear you. I hear you. I get it. I don't like it. I'm frustrated. We're frustrated. We get it. But no,
Right.
no, because there's no coming back from this. And also, like, I'm the kind of person, and it's not everybody, but at least for me, being in and out of the hospital that much in that short period of time was exhausting. And I don't think I want to live. I thought to myself, what, I have like three options, right, in my life. I can do something that's definitive for a very temporary problem because obviously my problems have been solved. Every problem I've had either gets solved or you move on,
Hmm.
right? Like it's not really the end of the world always. But then that's the first option, which you don't really want to pay attention to. The second option is you can keep trying and failing, trying and failing, trying and failing, and you keep going in and out of the hospital and out of the hospital. But then what's the difference between that kind of life and, like, you know, I don't know, like, just like always like feeding into it and kind of being like, "Oh, I don't want to live. I don't want to do this." Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
which one is survive? Like, both are not healthy ways of, for me at least, of living. And if I want to live, or at least if I want to try living and finally feel something in my life, then I need to not feed into the things that my mind is telling me to feed them. It's almost like a monster. Like, you don't give the monster more stuff, more ammunition to take over your life when you really don't even want that happening. Even though it's telling you yes, like, you're not happy in those situations. So your only third option is to actually, like, either get up and do something about it, which, like, I don't mean like get up actively and go do something. I just mean like to tell yourself, it's it's just temporary.
Hmm.
Like, this whole situation, like, while my suicidal thoughts constantly come in, are constant in terms of that's how my brain automatically thinks of like a crisis and goes straight towards that. The feeling and the impulse and the the like thoughts are all temporary. And there are things and solutions and ways that I can manage it. And I can be in control and I can say when and I can say. And I think that's what also for me, when I explained my attempt to even my therapist and my friends and family, like I know a lot of people say like it's a hopelessness, it's a feeling. And while yes, but it also feels like you're finally taking control,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like all of a sudden the control is in your hands. But what if the control wasn't, what if there's another way you can still control things? What if there is like another way you can still have that power? Because even though it's not like I felt powerful in those decisions, like in that moment, but I felt like I was finally taking initiative and doing something to solve something. And I think I needed to reframe that into thinking there might be another way to solve this, right? And there might be another way for me to take action on something else, something that's more positive, something that's more, life giving than life taking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how me and my therapist worked through it. It didn't happen right away. And it's not like I went to therapy and I was like, yeah, I'm ready to get fixed. I just was like, well, it didn't work, so I guess I got to be here. Like
Yeah.
we'll give it a try. We'll see how long it takes. But giving my life a try, giving it like giving myself a second chance and saying like this is my second chance, even though not everyone gets that, was like the one thing that helped guide me to becoming like, you know what, I don't want anyone else getting to the point that I felt because it is preventative. And I think that that's something that's really key is that it really is preventative. I know that it may not like it doesn't feel preventative, I think, for people like who think that way, but it is preventative. And there are ways that we can help people not get to that point.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Now,
Yeah.
when you first confronted this side of you, the suicidal ideation side, and all of this, was it difficult to confront it at first? Because I found that the hardest person to ever confront for myself was myself. Like the scariest person to face, I was like, oof, this is a big monster I'm dealing with right now. So in your experience, what was it like?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still fighting myself.
Right.
I'm still, I'm still, it was, it took a lot. It took a lot. And I think that conversation of just like that woman telling me, like looking me in the eyes and going, this is black or white. You don't come back from another. Because the thing is that, so for me, I've never attempted like a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I wasn't somebody who like had that like frequency of attempting. I also never self-harmed in that sense. Myself, I think, I don't know how to explain it. My self-harming is more like shopping or doing things like just
Oh,
like
I see
really
what you're
like
saying.
other type of like, do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like physical self-injury.
Mm-hmm.
But so when this happened, I was very adamant about it. It just didn't work. And I hate to say it like that, but it's true. I don't think that I don't consider myself blessed. I don't consider myself, ooh, you got a second chance. Congratulate. Like, it just happened
Mm-hmm.
to be that way. And I think that if just by 1 minute or 2 minutes, I wouldn't be here right now. And that's like a true sad fact. And it's something that I had to face and realize when I was in the hospital. And because it happened twice in a row. The first time it didn't work. And then I left the hospital, thought I was feeling better, didn't feel better at all. And then I made it a second attempt because I was like, you know what, screw this, I'm done. Like, I'm done. And that second attempt really did a lot of damage physically to my body and a lot of other things. Um, and it was in like after that moment and after that occurrence that, the hospital sat down with me and was like, if you do this again, you're going to be here for 65 days and you're not getting out.
Hmm.
And you're going to go to another hospital and you're going to have to be in intensive care. Um, and I'm somebody who needs to hear those things because I don't like commitment. I don't know how to
Right.
explain it. Don't ask me what I'm doing 2 months from now. I don't know. But like I don't like that.
Yeah.
So hearing that I was going to be stuck somewhere for 65 days just made me feel like,
Mm.
oh my God. And there's just like there's a whole lot. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, it's not that I needed to change because the thing was, is that like I told my therapist, literally, the feeling doesn't go away. Like like I told my, like, I was like, I'm mad that it didn't work. I still feel like crap, I can't even do this right. Like I'm so frustrated with my life and I can't even do this. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And it sucks. And I don't feel special and I don't feel saved because that's not fair to I definitely I have so much compassion and empathy for people who have lost their lives to suicide because I don't consider myself blessed that I'm living and they're not. That's not how I see it.
Hmm.
I see it as it just so happens that this is like my story, right? And I can't wrap my head around, like, the loss of someone to suicide, right? In terms of, I can't compare it, you know what I mean? Like it's just like it's very different. I don't know how else to explain it, but it just feels different. And I don't feel like, that their life had no meaning or had no, I definitely don't feel that way. And I don't feel like I'm, you know, living in a life of like a cry for help or something like that. But I needed to confront that part of me. And I needed to tell myself, like, your story, like, my story could easily be their story. And their story could easily be my story. But it just so happens that you have this story, and now you need to do the work because you are now living. So you have no, like, it's almost like you're not getting a choice anymore to take your own life.
Hmm.
This isn't going to be the choice. Because if you make that choice and it doesn't go through again, what are you doing? And that's how I had to tell myself. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that to yourself in terms of repetition? And now, while it sucks to say it like that, it's the only way that, for me anyhow, that I could kind of like wake up to the truth that what I was doing to myself was essentially, giving up on myself in terms of making effort towards change after the fact. I'm not saying during, but after the fact. But also seeing life as if like I have authority to take and give my life however I please, and I don't have that authority. And I kind of felt like I think I needed to let that go and feel like I can take control in other things, right? Because my problems, the crisis that I was going through, or the thoughts that I have, while they're difficult and hard and they really, really suck, and I don't really want to have to be somebody that suffers from that, you know what? There's other people who are also suffering like me, and I can reach out to them for support and we can be in this together. And I think also being in the hospital with other people who felt the same way made me realize that even though I felt alone, we're not alone. And this is a serious problem, and more people need to talk openly about it. And not everyone's fine, not everyone's doing okay. And, you know, I can essentially ask for help if I need to, but I can also like make an effort towards helping myself just not feed into those things anymore. I just needed to confront. It's like confronting myself was like through journaling and through like observation of my self-sabotaging behaviors. When I notice that I'm doing things that are not like good for my own health, because you know that there's like a saying even too, like, with people, like, while I am, so I don't see myself as a victim, but while I am somebody like a byproduct of like trauma and bullying, and I have mental illness, and while my mental illness still doesn't feel like I can't control it, but I can definitely manage it.
Hmm.
And that was where I was failing myself, right? I was failing myself by not managing my own mental illness. I'm not saying that I need to like trap it and take like whatever, but like I needed to manage it. Go to therapy. Ask for the right medication. The right medication is not working for you, ask again. Keep advocating for yourself. Keep going to group therapy. Ask your friends. Like there's so many things that I could have been doing and I just chose not to because there's almost like a safety in suffering when you've suffered for so long. It's like it's almost uncomfortable to get help because
Yeah.
it's like, well, what if I get better? Well, yeah, what if?
Mm-hmm.
What if you get better? What's the imagine that? It's like, oh my God, I can't. I can't imagine that. It's crazy.
Right. When did you start getting into a groove of doing all this self help work? Because at the beginning, I can only speak for myself. It was I would do it like for a day or two, and I was like, oh, I'm getting better. And then 3 days of I don't need this shit anymore, and then it would just be a mess. So when did you find your groove?
You know what? It was honestly, it just my I did self-help stuff in high school and in college and never stuck. Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do this. I went to therapy sometimes and I would BS my therapist constantly. And I knew that I was doing that. And that was a problem, right? And then after this, and honestly, I just think it was my therapist that really helped me see things in a different way. Um, and so I can't say that it was all just me, but it was just like it was this responsibility that I had to him after my attempt. He like it's funny. He's like a I think he said I was one of his like newer clients, right? Like one of his first coming out of school. And I'm like, whoa, you get stuck with the girl who tried to like off herself twice. Like, are you kidding me? That's like
Yeah.
rough. Like,
Yeah.
are you gonna that's a really rough case to get right off the bat. And when he told me that, I was like, crap, I really got to come to this guy's therapy. Like, I got to come every week to this therapy. And it was like, I really got to try a little bit, for the sake, because you know what it is? Like, he's a mandated reporter and there's like so many issues that go on if like something happens. Like, you think
Yeah.
about that. But like, I was just like, I really got to show up. All right. So I started showing up mostly for him, kind of like going like, whatever, I'm doing this for you. I'm not doing this for me. But it was in this process of it was twice a week and he was giving me we were going through DBT and it was going through the mindfulness stuff that actually helped me the most and made me feel the most safe was that it made me feel like I felt calmer, right? And I felt like I can go towards mindfulness every time because what I suffer from is like post traumatic stress, like
Mm-hmm.
very much so. My brain always brings up the past. I never feel in fear of my future, like my present, but it's like the past all of a sudden overcomes my present and I feel like I'm in these same feelings and it's really scary. And I started doing this mindfulness with him and we would go through just like meditation and journaling and reading lots of books, which are things that I'm interested in. And he encouraged me to keep reading about like even my own mental illness and like reading about things like he knew that that was something that I enjoyed doing to understand myself. And I think that's the key where once I started understanding the science and the research behind certain things, it made me feel a little bit more like, oh, like yeah, I can do this. I can definitely manage this. Why wasn't I doing this before? And it took a while, but as I got better, I got more excited into doing it. And then I became really, really relieved when I felt like I was really healing. And it felt like I was kind of shedding all these toxic layers that even I contributed to. Because it's not just always like your circumstance. I think that sometimes we also contribute to our own misery. And I think that that's really the key in changing things around. It's not always about blaming other people for your own chaos and your own, yes, I think there are totally times when it's other people's faults, but like and it's not about a blame game, but it's also about taking ownership for what you can control.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was like the biggest thing was like for me, I wanted to feel that control. I wanted to feel like I had power over something. And through him and through DBT and through CBT, I guess, and just like learning about myself, it felt like I could actually like get ahead before things started failing. And now, whenever I feel sick, which is not often, but I still feel sick sometimes, it's like I'm looking at myself from within and giving myself compassion and holding space for me.
Hmm. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, what do your self help practices look like now? Are they relatively similar now than they were when you were starting to get into the groove, or have they kind of evolved over time?
They definitely evolved. I first started a lot too with self affirmations, which there's a great study that actually just showed that self affirmations have like positive impacts on like brain chemistry and like neuroscience on it. But I started with self affirmations daily, which were a little weird at first, but I started posting them online, like on Instagram, and it made me feel like supported in a community because other people were like, "Oh my God, I love these affirmations.
Mm,
Thank you." So I was like, "Oh, okay." So I start, for me, it's like I think I also find comfort in helping other people. So through my own healing, if I can also help other people, it made me feel, I know that sounds selfish, but it made me feel better. I don't know how to
right.
explain it. So it was through that. And now one of my biggest tools that I still use to this day is like this like worry. It's not a worry. There's like two things. There's this worry tree that you can do whenever you're having anxiety about something or like worrying about something. You like do this little tree and you like put like, can you do something about it now? And if you're like yes, and go ahead and do it. Can if you can't, wait a couple minutes. What can you do about it? Is there something like tangible? Is it just think, is it in too far in the future? And if it kind of makes sense, then you don't have to, you can like let it go and you can focus on something else. And then the other thing that I use is, because my thoughts can be very like mean and harsh on myself and I feel this way, I journal out exactly what I'm feeling, like the mean things, the harsh words, all that stuff. Um, and then on the opposite side of the paper, I'll write something that feels a little bit more realistic. So, for example, if like you suck at everything, you're a failure at life. Are you really a failure at life? What if
Mm,
you like, is that actually true? And the answer is like, well, no, it's not entirely true. And then I just start like almost talking to myself, like, just like this kind of like dialogue between myself and the other part of me is like being like, it's not true. So like, what else is true? Oh, well, you did that one thing that was really cool. Oh yeah, I did do that one thing that was really cool. And it makes me just feel like, oh yeah, so that's not entirely true, right? So like there's always like this not entirely true statement that I give myself every time my mind wants to have like a black and white thought. It's like, is that 100%, 1,000% true? And the answer is usually no. So then I shouldn't believe something that's not 100% true. Even if it's 95%, that's still not 100,
mm-hmm.
you know? And like I know people say, well, it's true for me. It's like, no, but it's not really true. Like you can't, like, do you know for a fact that this person does not like you? Did they say they didn't like you? Or you just assume that they didn't like you? Or you assume all that kind of stuff like kind of feeds into your mind. And it's not until you actually get an answer from the source that you'll have that answer. And are you gonna take action to get that answer? If the answer is no, then don't worry about it. If you're not gonna worry, if you don't want to do what you need to do to feel like to get an answer that you want to hear, then you shouldn't be spending too much time thinking about it. And that's kind of just how I mean, this works for me. It's just like journaling and being very like honest with myself, and I think writing can be probably the best tool that I think someone picks up in terms of self-healing. And you don't have to be a good writer. You just have to write. And it could be anything. It could be poetry. It could be little words. It could just full on journal, stream of consciousness. And it could be anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a book, like in a journal. It could be on your phone, it could be anywhere. But writing for sure has been my top tool for self-help and feeling a lot better at the end of the day.
Mm. Yeah, no, I love that. I love writing. I mentioned it in a previous episode recently that The first time I ever journaled, I looked at the paper after and started crying because I was like, am I that mean to myself?
Yeah, you don't realize sometimes.
Mm-mm.
You don't realize. And it hurts you, I think. Like it's like, damn, and then I mean, for a while I would sit there and I would cry. I would cry. Like I even to this day, I do the same thing. I cry when I see those mean, hurtful things that I read about myself that I know can't, like there's a realistic part of me that knows that can't be true, but sometimes it's so clouded,
Hmm.
that it can't break through it. So I just give myself time.
Yeah.
Now I give myself time to feel better. And because feeling, I don't, I think a lot of times too, like with self-help tools, like just write, you'll feel better. No, like it takes time, I think, I think it took a long time for you to feel sad or mad or these thoughts about yourself. Like, I mean, at least for me it did. It wasn't like I was just born and then these, as I started having a conscience, like these thoughts popped into my head.
Mm-hmm.
It was like through growing up, through circumstance, through experience, through all these different things, it took time. So if that took time, then I can't expect my healing to be like a rushed process. And that's why I still feel like, even though therapy for me was 2 years intensely, I still go to therapy. I still like try to exercise daily. When I don't feel like exercising, I try to go for a walk or get fresh air. If I don't feel like doing that, I watch something on TV. Like there's always something that I can do to make myself feel somewhat comforted. Maybe not better, but comforted. And I think like even in moments when I don't feel like totally 100% and maybe darkness is getting a hold of me, I now feel comfortable reaching out. At the time I didn't, but like now, and I think that's something I want to advocate more for is like I think peer support is so important, even for people who may not ever know what suicidal thoughts feel like. But I think that if you have a friend or family member who has them, the best thing you can do is be there for them. And maybe not like on top of them, like I don't need you to like watch me or something, but like to know that I can come to you and say like I'm dealing with this and not feel like you're going to judge me and not feel like you're going to be like, oh my god, again, like again you're feeling this way or something like that. Like that's important to me. And I explained that to my friends and family after my suicide attempt, when they asked me like why I didn't go to them, why I didn't, what went wrong. And I explained like, well, I didn't even know if it was safe for me to come to you,
Mm.
to be honest. And I thought I would handle this. And, everyone looks at me like I have to have it all together, but I don't. And I think that really changed the way too, the way that my friends and family um now socialize with me as well. Like we are more sensitive to each other's feelings. Like I don't mean walking on eggshells, sensitive in a good way. We show compassion, we have empathy. Are you feeling okay? Things like that, like do you want to come out? Oh, you don't want to go out? Are you like, okay, just let me know when you do. I would be happy to see you. Because sometimes you don't want to do something, and that's fine. Sometimes you just want to be invited to know that you're there. And like those are like little things that I think people can do for someone who's like feeling that way, that like aids in like the recovery and the healing process of like getting better.
Mm-hmm. On the other side of that, this is my last question for you, Kayla. On the other side of that, if you're someone in that position who is having the suicidal ideation, who feels like the weight of the world right now is too heavy and doesn't really know where to turn, what would you want to say to them to get them moving in the right direction?
I think that the first thing is that it's okay to feel that way. And that's like really tough to say, but it is okay because I know that feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And while the feeling is unsettling, you have every right to feel that way right now. It's not wrong. You're not a bad person. You're not anything. There's nothing wrong with you for feeling that way. But I do want to say that there is help out there. And while maybe maybe it's not your friends or family that's the help that you need. Maybe you can reach out to an online, I don't know, there's like online forums, there's crisis hotlines, there's these like you can reach out, like, and just you reach out to someone that you feel understands you or maybe wants to understand you. And if you don't have that, I say the biggest thing that you can do right now for yourself is to get to a safe place. And that safe place can be, for me, ideally would be like an emergency room or my bedroom where I just feel the safest. If I'm like at a low risk, but at a high risk, I would say get yourself, into a safe space and whatever that looks like for you. It doesn't have to be the hospital if that's too scary. But the hospitals shouldn't be scary and they should be places where people do feel safe to come just to kind of get their mind off things, and feel like honestly, you get your phone taken away and get everything. Like honestly, it's a great way to get quiet. So I
Mm,
think that it's like a really great. I did feel very relaxed when I went there. And I've been there and I have been there, even in crisis nowadays. But I would say that there are safe spaces for you, and that there's a place for you in this world, even if like your mind's telling you there's not. But there's so much room for you, and I hope that you take up the space that you need.
right. Beautiful. Where can my listeners find you if they want to know more about you?
You can find me on Instagram at Kayla.Lafi, Lafi. And I'm actually starting a newsletter soon called Unsolicited, where I basically just give advice that no one asked for
Mm,
on lifestyle and wellness and self help and things like that.
I love it. And I'll put that link down below. Kayla, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a blast.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
And to all my listeners, I will see you guys next time.